The story I want to tell you comes from Donegal, a long time ago. The time, well, when life was very hard. There was a family called O'Connor. They had 6 little girls with just a year between them. We would call them all steps and stairs. When the oldest girl, Moya, was just 7 and the baby just a few weeks old, the father died of consumption, or TB as we know it. The young mother tried to keep her farm going with the help of neighbours, but by the time Moya got up to 14 years old, it was obvious she had to go out to the hiring fair, which was a bit like a cattle market. She stood with her bundle under her arm, waiting for a farmer to come and hire her. And finally, a farmer and his wife put her on the back of a cart and took her way far to West Donegal, far from home. They had a long, low farmhouse, and they brought her in and showed her up a rickety step ladder to what's called a half loft. There was just room for a bed, there was a window down into the yard, but having shared with all those little sisters, she thought it was a palace. Now, very soon she learned the woman of the house was very kind and showed her how to do all the jobs around the place. But the man of the house was heavy-handed, bad-tempered. He'd lift his hand and strike his wife and strike the girl. So both women spent their whole time walking on eggshells. But Moya managed well until coming up to Christmas one year. A big snowstorm had blown in. The woman of the house hadn't come home from doing the shopping. The man of the house wasn't home from work. The meal was ready, so she covered the meal, banked up the fire, and went off to bed. She'd only been asleep for about 15 minutes when she heard the downstairs door crash open, the man of the house shouting, roaring, "Where's the woman of this house? What sort of a house is this? No food for a hungry man," and stumbling across to the ladder up to where she was. And she knew she wasn't safe there, so she opened the window and jumped down into the snow and started running blindly in her bare feet with her long white nightdress, not knowing where she was going. All of a sudden, she was plucked off the ground by a man on a horse who put a cloak around her and said, "Don't worry, child, you're safe with me." And whether it was his voice, the move of the horse, or her own heart beating, well, she fell asleep with her head to his chest, just like a baby. When she opened her eyes, she was being lifted down off the horse. It was daylight, and when she turned around, horse and rider had vanished. And there in front of her were the 2 gateposts of her family farm. She ran up to the door and hammered and fell into her mother's open arms. Of course, her mother wanted to know, how did she get there? She told the story just the way I'm telling you. And her mother listened and said, "The man on the horse, Moya, did you notice anything about his hand?" She said, "Why, yes, mother. There was a scar like a crescent moon on the back of his hand." And her mother said, "That, daughter dear, was your own dead father."